Have you ever wondered how to take a traditional drawing that you did on paper and turn it into a digital drawing that you're really happy with? On this video, let's figure it out. Alright, so right off the bat, you got to grab your traditional piece and we got to get this thing scanned. So what you're going to do is hand it over to your personal assistant to scan it. So toss it at them, wake them up, make sure that they're ready to go, and can you grab it? Look, I'm getting really tired of your stuff. Can you take the picture? Take it! Alright, so like I said, we're going to scan it ourselves. So go over to your scanner and toss it in and make sure you got those edges lined up. So I'm sure you guys noticed that I don't have a huge scanner, and I'm willing to bet that some of you, if not most of you, don't have a huge industrial scanner at your home either. So what do you do when you're going to scan something that isn't perfectly 8.5 by 11, which is what that scanner is? Well, this is where our digital tools come in handy. So if we check out this folder, just for the sake of example, I did several scans of the picture we're going to work on today. So I purposely had these cut off. I only put certain sections in here. On this last one, I even just put in a corner to kind of demonstrate. Now with these 4 images in a folder that you know where they are, you're going to go to Photoshop and you're going to go to File, Automate, and then down to the bottom option, which is Photo Merge. Now, just to show you guys too, you don't have to have a document open for this. You could also do this straight from the home page if you wanted to as well. Okay, so we click Photo Merge, and it's gonna ask us to browse for our files. So hit Browse, find the photos you're gonna use, select them, and then hit OK. This is gonna populate it in here. These options down here, I've personally noticed that they don't really mean too much. I've selected them all, and I've selected none of them, and it all kind of comes out the same. You just kind of have to expect that you're going to crop your image one way or the other. But I usually click Vignette Removal and Geometric Distortion Correction, which will hopefully fix any perspective issues if maybe the scanner was a little off or something. From here, you hit OK, and then Photoshop's going to do its thing. So you just got to wait for a bit. It's doing an automated process. Essentially, it's piecing it together like a puzzle. Alright, so now I'm left with this jumble mess, and like I said, we have to expect to be able to crop some things. So let me kind of fix this up, and I'll talk about how we're going to do that. Okay, so the reason it looks like this is because the scanner took a 8.5 by 11 picture of every scan I did. So now this is a collection of 8.5 and 11 everywhere there is. So now I have to come in and just crop what Photoshop gave me. It's a lot easier on my part. Photoshop did most of the hard work, and I think this is pretty simple. If you're unfamiliar, go ahead and select your crop tool, which you can just hit C on the keyboard, and then you just slide in the scale to where you want it to be cropped. Once that's done, you just hit enter, and there you go. You got your picture. Looking around, you might notice a few things, like maybe some of these transparent pixels here showing, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to really use this original image. This is just going to be my guideline to build off of, so I don't really care that it's there. I'm going to throw in a white background anyways, and then probably color it to something else. If you guys are going to work directly on your line art, well, you can go ahead and either fill that in with a different color, you can stamp tool it, or you can just crop the image in a little further if it really bothers you. Alright, so from here we're just going to be working on some process, so I'm just going to talk you guys through it as I watch it here. I have it sped up quite a bit because this was probably I want to say like a 4-hour overall thing. I didn't quite finish as I wanted to, but we'll get that when we get there. So overall, this was an old sketch that I did, right? And I think a lot of us as artists, we have a lot of these sketches that we've had sitting around. They're past projects that we've meant to finish and we never got to them, right? The thing that happens too is that our styles change so rapidly sometimes, or our interests change, or whatever it is. So we're always looking for different avenues, different ways to express ourselves. But sometimes these ideas are still valid. They're still good ideas. But we want to talk about how we can bring them to our new style, right? So that's why you guys can see me here. I'm really experimenting with the face. I'm really just checking the proportions for the most part. I did a couple photo references for myself of what it would look like if I was looking down at, like, you know, hugging pillows or something like that. And obviously my facial expression was like this, if you guys can see. And so I was thinking more of like, oh, well, let me check if I did proportions like that, where I have, you know, the nose going over the lips or something like that. And I tried a few different ways. Overall, for the expression I wanted my character to be making, the girl that's hugging R2 here, it didn't work. It didn't work. It just didn't kind of have the emotion I wanted, because I wanted an open eye expression, and we can cheat things in art. I can just have her looking down like this, even though realistically that probably looks a little more awkward in the real world. But when it comes to art, well, we can kind of cheat it and make it work as our own. But this was kind of fun. This was a really fun experiment. This is definitely an exercise I recommend fully to everyone, because looking at your old drawing and then breaking it down again, you're going to learn so much about how much you've grown, for one, and also just about how to correct your own proportions. And it's kind of like teaching yourself, right? And who's a better teacher, or what's a better way to learn, is kind of the way I think about it. So you can see I'm like totally reanalyzing my pose. I started, bit by bit, like, okay, let me just throw in the arms, see how I want them stylistically. And then I realized, well, maybe that's not the most interesting pose, or maybe it just doesn't sell the motion as well. So I went through those motions. Now, big one, if you guys saw my style video or how to fix art block video, rotate that camera, flip it horizontal, put your traditional drawing in front of a mirror, right? It's going to show you something. Like, it showed me that my head was like just smashed on one side for some reason. So I was able to come in, fix those proportions, make them look cleaner, and it helped me to actually just kind of focus on the pose a little bit more, and I started to actually like it flip this way a little bit. And I think that's an interesting thing that you can explore as well too. What if you flip it and you end up liking that orientation better? It's another digital tool trick that is really helpful. But overall, even if you're working traditional and you only have that mirror, I promise you, holding it up to the mirror, it's going to show you something that you're just not seeing. Like that fix, to me, now that I rewatched this, it was so obvious that it was there, but I never would have seen it in a million years if I didn't rotate my camera. So a couple things here, I had to make the hair a little more believable for myself. And then, like I was saying here, I just felt like the pose needed something to be switched up. It just didn't seem super realistic that she's just both hands down. It felt like I was cheating a little bit as an artist too, right? I feel like we always try to hide hands in our pieces, and I didn't want to be hiding anything or look like I'm hiding anything. So I experimented with it, and now I came to the conclusion of having her embracing like one of R2's arms, but the other one is still just kind of hanging down, right? So I kind of found like a happy middle ground. You guys will see me doing this a lot. If you guys saw my art block video, you're gonna see me doing it a lot. And it's finding the line art that works for me and that makes me happy here. So I went over this several times until I was happy with how this came out. That quick flash that just happened, I was actually making my image size bigger. I had it at about 200 dpi, and then I noticed that with the brush pen that I got from the artist Phil Tomato, I got his brush pack, and I really like it. Creates like a canvas feel, or like a canvas texture. I think it just makes your art look really clean, if that makes sense. And so anyways, it looks really nice the higher your image resolution is. So usually if you're going to be doing for print anyways, you're going to work 300 dpi. So that's kind of the average. That's the standard. Realistically, if you're working digital, you only need to work about 72 dpi, but your lines aren't going to seem as crisp. You zoom in, you're going to get kind of this pixelated look. So you just kind of have to know what you're getting into, right? Working at a higher DPI though, you're just going to get much cleaner, bigger images, and I think that's the way to go personally. So you can't forget that there's a story going on, right? I had R2D2 in this picture, and so just like my character got a full redesign, I'm going to go into R2D2 now. Now, R2D2 doesn't really need a redesign. I think I drew him pretty well in the traditional one. Maybe just kind of round out some features just for fun to kind of play with like the perspective of, you know, the camera's looking up at him a little bit, right? Or he's kind of getting hugged, so he's getting pulled back from us. So I played with that. You know, this is going to be super stylistic, so it doesn't have to follow a crazy proportional format. It really just has to tell the story, and for you guys to like the story, which that's up to you. Hopefully you do. But I just wanted to make this cheesy and silly. It's kind of like a love letter to Star Wars and pinup drawings, which is what I like as well, right? So two of my biggest things that I love coming together in this piece. All right, so really this is just a lot of process. There's not too much that I can say here other than, like, you know, it's just a lot of back and forth, making sure my lines are clean. You can see I'm coming in here, overlaying with the actual drawing, making sure it works. Does it look like she's holding it? That's really important to me, is not just the fact that I have some like noodly arms dangling over and doing something. I want to make sure that it looks like there's weight, right? There's something in front of her. So like when you're going to be holding something in front of you, your shoulders are going to come forward, right? You got to kind of like move to give space in between you. We got to think about that 3D space. So that was something that was really important to me, even though I was going stylistic and cartoony, is making sure that with as minimal lines as possible, I'm conveying that to you. So here we go again. It's really funny watching this back. You guys, I definitely recommend, if you guys can record yourself drawing and then watch it back, it's a really humbling experience. But I'm going in and I'm fixing my line art, but this is going to be my final pass on my line art here. I think we'll find out. But this I believe is my final pass on my line art for the majority of this stuff. And I just wanted to make sure, just like if you guys check out my art block video, I think I mentioned it way too many times already, too many self-plugs here, but the style that I've been trying out lately, which has been working for me, has been just clean, simple, easy lines. I'm trying to step back from how heavy I hold proportions over myself, and how much I don't let myself express myself in art, because I am just kind of focused on these like fundamental skills that were pounded into my head. And I need to let myself, know that my fundamental skills are there and they're going to be put to use, but how can I step back from them? That's my biggest goal right now, that I'm kind of like working with, as I do some videos with you guys too. So I hope you guys like this, because this is full process and this is totally me like using this as an excuse to get some drawings in as well. But let me know if you guys are enjoying the process of seeing this, if this is helping you. I left this full screen here too. I'm not going to crop it, so you guys can see what's going on with my Photoshop document. If you guys want to see how I lay it out, I really don't do anything crazy with my layout, not that I think of. But yeah, also because I was going to be flipping and rotating a ton, so it would look really weird if I just had it cropped, and my picture's just kind of spinning around or going all the way over there and over there. So it works out better if I just have a full Photoshop screen on. And just like my character, R2's got to get some of that line art love there too. With this, I was trying to think of a little bit of a variation in line weight. So I wanted her to feel flowy, organic, those nice thick lines, right? I kind of want her to be like the center point, because I feel like R2's going to have the colors that are going to make him pop. So he doesn't really need the line weight to make him pop. So I kind of came in, I made sure my brush was nice and small, thin lines, same brush as her though, because I wanted to keep a consistency, right? You want to make sure your pieces kind of stay consistent with each other if they're in the same piece. And I just made sure that the line weight looked a little more one note. All right, and moving on to coloring. Now, coloring is a weak area for me, in at least that I feel. It's something that I am not super confident in. It's something that I feel like I am consistently working at getting better at, right? I'm always studying it, trying to get better, trying to simplify it as well. So something I've been learning to do is to just kind of pick something that's in the direction that you want. It's nice and light, so it contrasts very nicely with that line work that you're doing. So you don't want dark and dark. If you do a dark, and then your line work is also dark, you're gonna have competing kind of qualities there, or the line work's gonna kind of appear like an accidental shadow or something like that. So if you are working with a darker skin tone and a darker like environment, maybe too, like a darker background, then you can start to mess around with different warmths and hues and saturations of that line art, which I do a bit on here as well. Full disclosure, I fully left everything in here. So even if I was doing the hue and saturation tool and it just wasn't what I wanted and I canceled it and I reopened it just to mess around and keep trying, all that's in here. I wanted to show you guys full process from start to finish and just kind of go through it with you guys. So for anyone who is just completely lost on how this process happens, this is for you, right? Maybe you guys are just starting out, or maybe you just like to see other people's processes and how they kind of use their workflow on Photoshop. So okay, so she has her flat colors, and I got the important stuff. I made her eyes blue to kind of work again. I'm thinking of that, how do my two characters work together? Her eyes are blue to match with R2-D2. I'm going to match the blues a little bit later. I chose her blue first, but I'm going to go back in and change it. And that's just for a little bit of harmony in the picture, make it work together a little bit. I think with her skin tone, naturally, I probably would have gravitated towards a green. For the eye color, I think that would look nice with the skin tone and just have a nice contrast because it's pretty warm. And then if you went with a cooler green tone, it really would stand out for eye color. But again, I was trying to create kind of a harmony within this picture between the two characters, and I really wanted to step up their relationship, right? So anything that I can do that makes their you look back and forth between the two characters, I'm gonna do that. And it could be as simple as eye color matching something on R2. So look, I almost lied to you guys, but I do go in and fix some line art again. I know I did have an issue where, and this happens a lot to me, so if this happens to you, don't worry. I think it happens to everyone. Every artist I've ever talked to has shared their frustration with this. But where I think I'm drawing on one layer, but it turns out to be another layer, and it turned out I was drawing on the white background layer, and I thought I was drawing on R2's line art, and then so what ended up happening was I had to go through this whole process of erasing everything in between that and making a new background, and you'll find that I still find some splotches of that, and I have to go in and erase it sometimes when I'm looking at the background. And anyways, that's a process. I guess we can get into it in another video. If you guys want me to help you with any troubleshooting questions you have for Photoshop, let me know. I'm not the craziest Adobe whiz out there, but I do know a few things just from practice and experiments and classes that I've taken. So if you guys like these tutorials and you want to get my view on some of these Photoshop tips, I'll let you know. All right, so now that I'm going in and kind of getting some of the detail here. Now, if I'm drawing R2, I'm not going to draw a shiny R2 just got celebrated version of R2. He's going to be dirty. He's going to be he just came back from a mission, a little grimy. Because that's how I see R2 in my head. R2 is a hard working droid, and that's how I want to represent him in my piece. So I gave him that nice kind of off-whitish, almost into the greenish gray dirty area. The brush that I'm using, the Phil Tomato brush that I got in his pack, really helped with that, because again, it has that canvas, like you're painting dry brush on canvas texture to it when you draw nice and light. When you draw heavy, it's flat. But you can really play up those textures, and I think those textures just add a lot of something to your picture. And even if you leave your picture flat colors, it still adds this depth, because all of a sudden it's adding like this really intricate texture, and it's interesting. It's not my brush pack, maybe I shouldn't go on about it, but that's the reason that I like it. If you guys are curious about the brushes that I'm using, you can check it out through his Instagram. I'll link him below. He has his brush pack. I think it's like $5. It comes with like a video tutorial. I mean, come on, can't get better than that. So anyways, we know with R2 he's got a shiny dome, and I really wanted to play that up, but also I want to remember that she's casting shadows on him as well as, like, so the reference that I'm using is not going to be the exact light source that we're seeing, all those things, right? So I do have to take a couple things into my own hands and think about lighting and all this stuff and how it affects R2 and what's going on. So you guys can see here, I'm just kind of messing around with different brushes. He had like a little control panel thing on his side of his face that's like always blinking. But for the most part, I really just kind of mess around with this under the chin shadow. And then I was like, wait, it's like a mirror reflection. You're gonna see some of her skin tone in it. You're gonna see some of the warmth of her body reflected in this. And I got that in there. And it's just like, again, it's just about that harmony, right? It just makes it work together so well. It was a detailed R2 and some flat color on top of him. But now it's like this really detailed R2 reflecting what's right above him. This was the hue and saturation process I was talking about. What I was doing is I go into the line art of her. I have R2 and her line art separated. If you guys can remember to do that. Sometimes I know we make mistakes. And then you have her line art selected. You go to image adjustments, hue saturation, little checkbox that says colorize. Click it, and then you draw up the lightness to darkness slider while also playing with, I believe, the saturation slider. And this is going to change the warmth and the color of your line art. If you guys look back at my picture, there was black line art, right? I was drawing with black. Now we just see kind of like an off darkish brown. And I did this for a reason, because it creates like a nice harmony, which is really cool. It kind of sits better on the character, but it also allows me to come in and recontrast my picture and pick and choose where I want the darks to be, and then I can leave in some of that brown line art too. So it's a good way to kind of like step back and get a chance to like really pick and choose what you want to show, right? So you guys can see I talked about the eyes, right? So I gave them the R2 blue. You guys can see now that we're looking at both of them. Really kind of connects them together. And just kind of focusing on giving those eyes a little bit of life. And I'm zooming in and out, by the way, to make sure that this is working. If someone saw it this big, I need them to understand that this is a figure, right? Maybe they don't have to even understand it's a girl, a boy, or whatever. It's holding R2 or some sort of colored item that looks like R2, right? So to me, it needs to read even at 1 inch or 2 inches, right? So that's why I keep kind of zooming in and out. So here's what I was talking about, right? Now I get to go in and play with my line art again. And so then maybe this is like the 500th round of doing the line art, but something about having that brown kind of as the background line from my original pass on the line art, it really just sets off the page nicely. It makes my black lines look very, very intentional. which overall, even if you're not 100% on your line art, if you can go into it confidently and lay down those lines confidently, guys, I'm telling you, it will sell it way more than if you go in there timidly with like a really skinny line and you're like, I'm not sure. People will recognize, whether it's like just completely unconsciously confident strokes and confident anything in your picture. So when you lay down something confidently, even if it's wrong, yeah, if it's really wrong, they're gonna notice, but the fact that you laid it down confidently is going to really set it apart. All right, so I started diving into a bit of her shadow shapes and stuff. I don't want to go dynamic with the shadows and give her like, you know, like a crazy cast shadow like you see going on here with my nose. It just didn't feel like it worked for the picture. I know I went detailed with R2, but it's just, for me, I thought it was cuter to just kind of leave her a little more simple. And so I'm really just adding these little touches here and there, a little bit of color on her face. And then what I wanted to do was I was just kind of searching through my tools to play around here, but then I remembered color dodge. And what color dodge does is you make a new layer, you change it to color dodge, and you grab yourself a nice soft like opacity brush and you just lightly dab it on there. You guys can see where I go too hard and then I you know, undo. So you just leave it on there and it gives this like nice ambient glow. I think it's really nice. It adds like this human warmth to the picture that you just really can't beat. Now, I will say overall, the only thing I didn't finish, which I brought up in the beginning, was I wanted to add tattoos on her. I do really like the image as it is, but I wanted to mess around with adding some like Empire and Rebellion tattoos on her. Otherwise though, this piece is completed with the hearts and the eyes here, and I think it came out pretty nice. But I want to hear from you guys. Did you guys like this process? Have you done this process before? Do you guys have tips maybe that I didn't cover that you think other people would like to know? Let me know in the comments and hopefully we can help each other out by doing so. I just want to say thanks again so much for watching. Please let me know if you do like these process videos and they're helping you out. Of course, as always, just let me know what you guys would like to see in the future. I want to make those videos for you that help you along this art process so we can continue this journey together. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.